Tonight we have three excellent sponsors. We have Aer Lingus, we have Aquacoms, and we have Alltech, and we greatly appreciate their support for this evening's event. Can I welcome our good friend Declan Carney of Aer Lingus?
Yeah, it's a great honour to address such an esteemed audience, and I suppose we're all here to both celebrate and participate in the bond between Ireland and the United States. I think in that respect, 2015 has been an extraordinary year. Within our own sector, within that relationship, I would say that the relationship between the two countries is probably stronger than ever before in terms of business, in terms of trading across the Atlantic, investment, and most specifically, again, in a sector that we're very much part of, in tourism. You're probably aware, but if you're not, I'm about to tell you, this is an all-time record year for inbound tourism to Ireland from the United States. There's a 14% increase so far this year on last year, which is phenomenal. And another interesting statistic that Niall Gibbons of Tourism Ireland announced earlier this week is that actually 1 in 10 Americans visiting Europe actually visit Ireland. So that's phenomenal when you think that we make up less than 1% of the population of Europe. So a phenomenal year of success, and those bonds in terms of tourism in both directions very strong. Very good for our business. You may not know, but Aer Lingus over the past 5 years has been the fastest growing airline on the North Atlantic corridor. So we're very proud that we're growing our share versus all of the European competitors and also against our North American competitors. In fact, our North American business, which is almost 60 years old this year, so we started flying the Atlantic in 1958, has grown by a massive 62% in the past 5 years. So it's not a fledgling business in any respect. Those are the kind of numbers you'd expect normally from some kind of startup. But we have been going through a major growth phase, and that is very much, I suppose, we benefit from those growing links between the two countries. As part of that, what you've seen in Dublin Airport is that Dublin is becoming a very serious player in terms of traffic between Europe and North America. Dublin is becoming a hub for the North Atlantic and not just what they call a destination airport. And that's very good for connectivity, and it's very good for all of the businesses that we participate in. In that context, Dublin has actually jumped from 11th position in Europe in terms of North Atlantic capacity to 6th position in the past 5 years. So it has leapfrogged over all other airports with the exception of Heathrow, Paris, Schiphol, Frankfurt, and Madrid, which are all, with the exception of Madrid, would be referred to as super hubs. So Dublin very much coming to the fore and building that bond across the Atlantic. Next year, as I said, we have a very exciting year. One of the major benefits of joining IAG is that we get access to aircraft at a better rate than we would normally get if we were to go and source them as an individual airline. And that has meant that IAG is investing a very significant amount of money in growing our North Atlantic business next year. So that means that we will grow by more than we've ever grown before in 1 year. We will add 420,000 seats on the North Atlantic to our network next year. It'll bring our total seat capacity for next year between Ireland and Canada and the US to over 2 million seats for the first time ever. And we're doing that through the addition of new routes. The new routes are Dublin to Los Angeles. We have Dublin to Hartford, Connecticut, and also Dublin to Newark, which we'll add into our other services into the New York region. So in terms of strengthening the transatlantic relationship, I can assure you that Aer Lingus will continue to play its part. So enough of pushing the Aer Lingus message. I would like to say it's a great honour for me to introduce the next speaker. I'd like to welcome Ambassador Kevin O'Malley, who was sworn in as US Ambassador in September of last year. He's been an adjunct professor both in Washington University School of Law and in the St. Louis University School of Law. So please join me in welcoming Ambassador Kevin O'Malley. Thank you.
It's great to be here, and this is my the second time I've had a chance to address the Council. And last year, I went through the astounding numbers that that had been racked up during the previous 12 months with the trade and investment that has happened between the United States and Ireland. And it's amazing to me that the ties that you have been able to create and maintain between my country and Ireland have resulted in such a wonderful economic engine right now. That what started out with a bunch of immigrants and led to the familial ties between our two countries, which are great and warm and worth keeping and worth cherishing, have now developed into this economic engine where this two-sided trade and the both-way investment and the hundreds of thousands of jobs that have been created are just wonderful. And I could go through those same numbers again. The numbers last year were phenomenal. The numbers this year are even more phenomenal. But let me just move on to something else and say congratulations for staying with this program, which has been so very beneficial both to Ireland and to the United States. But there's another issue that has come up that really needs to be addressed, and Roddy was kind enough to give me the podium tonight so that I could spend a few minutes talking about it. And that is the issue of the J1 summer work and travel visa. That has been a mainstay of the relationship between the United States and Ireland for almost 50 years. They're almost as old as this organization. The program started in 1966, and over 150,000 Irish students have come to the United States on this program. And it is something that we in the United States cherish, and I know it is something that is well thought of here in Ireland. But this year there's a change. And over the almost 50 years of this program, it has evolved. There have been changes almost every year. But this year, the two largest sponsors of the program, two companies, one called CIEE and the other one called InterExchange, have changed the process by which this program will be administered by those two companies. And they're by far the two biggest administrators, sponsors of the program in the United States. And they're going to require that all students across the world have jobs before they can get a visa and come to the United States. Up until this point, the jobs could be provided by these two companies, or the Irish student could come to the United States and try to get a job. Most Irish kids, because of the relationship between the two countries, were successful, but a percentage were not and had to return home. And so what the companies have decided to do is to bring Ireland and the other visa waiver countries into compliance with the entire rest of the world. And now Irish students coming to the United States will be required to have documentation of a job before we can issue a visa. We will not be able to issue a visa to these students without proof of a vetted job. So what we want to do is to make sure that everybody knows that. And so we've taken to the airwaves and to the papers, and I've written letters to all of the ministers and to everybody that I can think of to make sure that the word is spread to the parents and to the students that this year is going to be a little bit different, and we have a couple suggestions to make, and one of those is don't wait to the last minute. I've only been here a year, but I figured that out about you guys. You do tend to wait, and right now the Irish students will be competing in a pool with all the other students. Now, in America, you know that the American employers want to hire Irish students. I mean, you know that. But if there are no Irish students there to pick from, they're going to pick the kids from Albania and Georgia and the Czech Republic and the other countries that participate in this. So if the best jobs in the best locations are going to be available to those people who are in line first. So I urge you to tell anybody that you know of that age or parents to get the kids in line. Second thing I'd like to ask you all to do is to think about other places, other people that you know, contacts you have in the United States that might be able to provide jobs for the Irish students. We want to make sure that we have sufficient employment for all of the students who are applying. And I think that one thing that this pre-employment requirement is going to do is make sure that the Irish students go to more diverse places than they have before. It was, San Diego has been this great spot, and hundreds of thousands of Irish kids go to San Diego, and they're like 100 jobs, and a lot of them have to come back home, and we really want to avoid that. So we're going to probably spread the students out into places that they haven't tried before. And if you could help us, if you know people who have the kinds of jobs that the J1ers can do, the seasonal, the kind of work in the summer, that would be great. We're going to have, beginning next month, there'll be virtual job fairs, literally, FaceTime or Skype interviews that the students here in Ireland will be able to meet with prospective employers in the United States and nail this down in the early months of next year. And so we would urge people to try to do that. And in February of next year, there will literally be, the employers will come to Ireland literally and have face-to-face interviews with students for jobs. So we want to make sure that the Irish parents and the Irish students know this so that they can take advantage of this new change. I think that I would be hugely disappointed if one Irish student who wants to go to the U.S. on a J1 program gets denied because they didn't know about this in time and didn't get through the hoops that they're going to have to go through. So I'm asking you to kind of help me help Ireland in that way. It would just be a shame. So many people here in Ireland who have gone on this program have counted it as really one of the most valuable things they've done in their life. And we love in the United States having your sons and daughters come. We love having them around, and we don't want to see anybody denied that. So thank you very much for listening to my little sermon. I've been giving it a lot lately. Because I feel strongly that I don't want to have anybody denied the privilege. So, thanks very much to you for listening. Thanks very much to our sponsors, Aer Lingus and Aquacoms and Alltech, for making this evening possible. And I hope that you all have a very, very happy Christmas and a very prosperous New Year, helping us connect the United States and Ireland. Fine. Merry Christmas.
Alltech is a privately owned company. Dr. Pierce Lyons, Irishman, and we work in the area of natural feed, animal feed, nutrition and health. Biggest in the world at that event. Actually, I'm with the company 25 years this year, and when I started off, we had a bit of an idea, sort of a dream if you want to call it, that we could someday hit the magic $1 billion in sales. You have to remember, this is just one Irish guy left here 35 years ago with his wife, kids, 10 grand, and a bit of a dream. And just at the beginning of this year, we were approaching that $1 billion in sales. The good news is that we're going to end the year as a $2.2 billion company. A massive growth in the year through great acquisition. Today, Alltech would be the biggest feed business in Canada, number 3 in the United States, number 2 in Australia, massive in 120 countries around the world. As I said, it's a real achievement for an Irish guy, just with an idea, leaving here and turning it into $2.5 billion. And the target of the $4 to $5 billion is coming up quickly. There's a lot of new announcements due in the very near future. And it's a great pleasure. Some of the areas that we work in is primarily in the area of fermentation, hence the link to the beer and the booze and the distillery, and new distillery coming online in town later this year. So it's a really interesting period, but some of the bigger areas for those involved in agriculture will be aware that this year, for example, Ireland, for the first time, has ended the milk quota in Europe. So Ireland has a massive national plan to increase its milk production by 50%. Far greater than any other country in the world. But to do that, we also have to reduce our carbon emissions by 25% simultaneously. Possibly considered impossible, but except we're doing it. And we're happy in Alltech to play a big role, because a lot of the technology that we've developed actually plays very much into that area. And I've been working very closely with Bord Bia and Minister Coveney in trying to bring those technologies to the marketplace so as we can actually make Ireland simply the most sustainable country in the world for producing food, and can stand over it, internationally accredited, and we're well on the way to achieving that again. So it's great to play a role like that. Dreams 25 years ago never thought that would ever happen, you know. So it's been a fantastic year for us, and it's great to be able to have the opportunity to work with Roddy and the guys here to share those messages with you. Finally, before I leave, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Greg Varisco from, as you can see, Aquacomms.
Aquacomms is an Irish company, despite my brogue. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for the company. But we're based here in Dublin, and we have operations both in the U.S. and in the United Kingdom. The Atlantic has a rich history of initiatives connecting Europe to North America that is vital both to economies and the social growth of our society. That history continues with our deployment of AE Connect, the most advanced subsea fiber optic system in the world. We have several firsts that we're very proud of on this project. With the advanced optical technologies that were deployed, it offers the highest amount of capacity of any subsea cable in the world. That's 130 wavelengths of 100 gigabits if you're counting, and that's 13 terabits for if you're a geek. We also are the shortest and most reliable engineered system ever deployed on the Atlantic. And that's because we chose a route that reduced the amount of shallow water that we expose the cable to. And shallow water, it's where fishermen and boats anchor and cut cables. So we've chosen a route that eliminates that, and therefore it's a very reliable system. And which makes sense. If you put in a system with an enormous amount of capacity that would carry 1/3 of the Earth's total communications at the same time, these are fantastic numbers, you'd want to do it very reliably, and that's what we've chose. It's also the quickest and most successful deployment of any subsea cable system over 5,500 kilometers. We went contracting force with our supplier TE Subcom in April, and here we are in December with the system complete and installed and finished. And there's a lot of people for us to thank for that. Mayo County, we've worked very well with. Peter Hines is here, and Joanne Grehan with the Enterprise Investment Unit have both worked tirelessly with us to be able to get everything done that we needed to do. We appreciate their cooperation. When we started working on AE Connect, most of the reputable industry observers said there was a glut of capacity on the Atlantic and really questioned our initiative on being able to be financially sound. However, in the short time that we began working on the project, significant advancements from both the user requirements, the large content providers that we're working for, and also the technology that we're deploying have taken place. And that trans into something very simple that you'll relate to. Today, bandwidth and connectivity, the way the world is wired, has really shrunken the world. And the best way I know how to illustrate that is to say that if you were to put an ultra-high definition link between Ireland and the US, and you left that channel open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 15 years, guess what you would pay for it? I'll shock you. $40. That's what you'd pay for that whole channel for 40 years. So that tells you that the game has changed. We live in a different world. Technology is changing things. And you can see the type of bandwidth and capacity that we're providing is linking things together that we've never thought possible in the past. Well, where did this start? Well, let's go back in history just a little bit. I think you'll find interesting. 1858 was the first attempt to put a transatlantic system in. And it took about 5 attempts until 1866 that there was finally a first successful transatlantic cable put in between Valentia, Ireland, and Canada. That first cable transmitted one word in 17 hours. By the time they got to the 5th cable, that really figured things out, and they were doing 8 words a minute. So let's contrast that to today. I'll give you a number that it's hard to relate to again. but we have the capability to send 1.2 billion words every second, and that's the difference. It's an interesting quote from the Boston Post of 1865 when that first successful cable was put in. It said, "Well-informed people know that it is impossible to transmit the voice over wires. Even if it were, it would be of no practical use." Excuse me. But Ireland's contributed in many ways. Thomas Larkin in 1899 from Ireland went to work for the Bell Telephone Company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And what is part of a pioneering effort that was to become the modern telephone network that we have today. This led to the first successful transatlantic cable capable of telephone calls in 1926. Michael Larkin is here tonight and has been very gracious enough to provide all the artifacts that are contained in this case to show that linkage to the past, that what the continued contribution that Ireland makes. He's the great-grandnephew of Thomas Larkin, and so you might want to get a chance to visit with him. It's very interesting, some of the things that he's brought this evening. So how does this affect us? These types of linkage and connecting that we do for the world today, it certainly gives us the capabilities that we all enjoy, being able to book an Aer Lingus and flight on your cell phone, being able to check in, and all the security that we demand out of these systems. I think you understand how important it is when we talk about virtual things. This is the type of infrastructure that it takes to do it. Thanks again for having us here this evening.